Your daily fix of women's mixed martial arts from the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. Be in the loop, because Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your fix on women's MMA. We've got you covered on Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Arnel De Leon, and hopefully you are doing well for yourself. You, your friends, your family, whether you live in the States or internationally, I hope you're doing fine for yourself during a time of major uncertainty. And I'm just going to bring this up right now because I kind of have to. Yes, the election is still technically, currently, still ongoing. And I just got to bring that up because, oh my goodness, the past 3 days, the past week, if you've been on social media at all, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, okay? Things are incredibly toxic nowadays. I can't even walk. I cannot walk in my neighborhood without somebody going up to me. Like, I'm being perfectly honest. The past 4 days, I've had 3 people come up to me and be like, "Hey there, young man, tell me, what is your opinion of the election? Who did you vote for?" And I'm like, I can't tell you who I voted for because if I tell you whoever I voted for, then I'm going to be, someone's going to throw tomatoes at me, alright? It's not going to go all bueno. And so, knowing this right now, as you're listening to this podcast notes, I am completely neutral, alright? Completely neutral. Whatever you think is going on right now out there in the world, whatever is right, whatever is wrong, that's on you. But right here on this podcast, we'll be talking about women's mixed martial arts. And women's MMA has been awesome the past week. We got good events coming in from Bellator, from One Championship, from the UFC, and right now I'll be talking about primarily One Championship. They recently had a title defense coming up there. Later in the end of this podcast here, I'll be talking about the recent fight between Claudia Gadhela and Yan Xiaonan. But first, I'll be talking about one of the best fighters in all of mixed martial arts with Xion Jing Nan against TIffany Teo. This is coming in from One Championship. I think it's called Enter the Matrix. Yeah, I think so. Like One Championship, The Matrix. And there's like a 3-day event thing happening on now. Currently, right now, as I'm talking, they're doing a Matrix Part 3. But I'll be talking about Zhang Jing Nan versus TIffany Teo. If any of you guys are not watching One Championship, and I understand that it's difficult to get your hands into One Championship, just Google it. You can find somebody streaming it. You can go find, here's the thing. They post a lot of their fights directly on their YouTube channel. Like both One Championship and Bellator do this, where they're posting their recent fights that happened within the span of just 3 days right to their YouTube channel. They just do that. For the UFC, they post fights that are a year old, but for Bellator and for One, they go post up as new fights as they possibly can. Well, let me be talking about here. So this is for the One Championship, your strawweight title. We got Zhang Jing Nan versus TIffany Teo. This is a rematch. 3 years ago, Zhang Jing Nan was able to defeat TIffany Teo. And they always bring this up. All the time. The commentary team, they made an effort to be that. TIffany Teo, she got beat by Zhang here, and Zhang is one of the all-time greats already, and TIffany was a former choir girl. Can you believe that? And now she's making her big return into the cage. She's been fighting against Zhang. This is her big redemption story. And this event took place in Singapore. So we have Zhang here from China. And for those of you who are unaware, China right now and One Championship has the most representation of fighters who are currently succeeding. That's how it is. You know how it is in UFC. There's we got a Chinese fighter, we got a Brazilian fighter, we got an American fighter here, we got a Nigerian fighter, an Aussie, a Nigerian. UFC is very diverse in its fighters in the sense that there's no one nationality dominating the competition. And in One Championship is China. China is dominating most of the competition here. And me being a Filipino, the one thing we're ahead of would be the heavyweight division for One with Brandon Vera. And Brandon Vera I cannot follow the guy. I mean, when I say I can't follow the guy, means I cannot watch Brandon Vera fight and be like, yeah, man, go Philippines, because he's not that good. He's not that good. And the heavy division sucks, for one. But you know what? Here we go here. I'll go through my fight notes here. TIffany Teo here. She tries to engage by poking with jabs and low kicks, but Xion, whenever she counters, throws in a combination. Zhang is winning pretty much the majority of the 50-50 exchanges, laying in right overhands in the end of her combinations. Teo is a lot more hesitant after losing out the strikes, with Zhang slowly becoming the one pushing the pace, because initially it was Teo pushing the pace with leg kicks and jabs to the body, but then, pretty much at the tail end of the second round, Teo stops poking her opponent through body shots and through leg kicks, and kind of becomes a headhunter. Her strategy pretty much shifts where she becomes... So, Teo's coming in as a BJJ expert, but most of this fight was them striking each other. And in the few instances to which Teo was able to utilize her BJJ, she did really good. But for the most part here, she let this fight be more of a striking battle more than it really should be. But Xion is starting to go off on her combinations with 2 or 3... her combinations have a tendency of being 2 or 3 body punches and ending up with an overhand. She does almost no combinations that go off the end with a leg kick or with the body punch. It always is 1-2, either body shot, leg shot to head, or 2 body shots to head, or 1 head shot to a body, then back to a head again. So the combinations do become predictable, and it just took a long time for TIffany Teo to be able to download all this information and recognize the openings here. Because by the tail end of this fight, TIffany Teo was really winning. She was. I think she recognized the opening she needed to go defeat Zhang. But spoiler here, Zhang was able to win the fight here via unanimous decision. But TIffany, by the tail end of the fight, was doing really well for herself. I put here, Zhang was able to win the first round, winning off the basis that she won most of the exchanges. Teo could have won the first if you preferred her pokes. So if your idea was like, okay, Teo, so TIffany Teo. I put it like Teo, T-E-O. So TIffany Teo, although one could argue that she landed more strikes via her poking, her strikes were not all that... How do I put this? They weren't all that effective enough, at least from the perspective of judges, to really consider it anything significant. There's always a difference here between significant strikes and just like total strikes here. And if you look at the fight stats, which I always talk about in every podcast here, where there could be a fighter who landed 100 strikes but only landed 76 significant strikes, and in this case, Cenan here, without a doubt, Zhang Jingan landed more significant strikes than TIffany Teo, but TIffany Teo landed more total strikes. And because if you just go by the eye test here, because I believe you have to judge a fight through both fight stats and through the eye test here, Zhang Jingan was winning the exchanges. She was winning in the stand-up here. And it was evident if you look at Zhang, who went back to her corner and she's breathing all fine, while TIffany Teo, she looks all banged up. So to the judge's perspective and to the audience perspective, also to commentary, we see that, TIffany Teo, she struggled a lot more in the striking here. She stumbled a lot more. She was hit a lot more cleaner, hit a lot more harder than Zhang did. So even though Teo landed more poking shots, i.e. more jabs and more leg kicks, even then, you wouldn't want to give the round to her. So first round, in my opinion, goes to Zhang. It's a faster pace from both fighters starting off in the second round. Zhang struggles poking Teo, so she tries to bait Teo in with counter punches. So Zhang right now, Zhang in the first round, she was the one counterfighting. She was always the person leaning backwards. And then in the second round here, all of the pace quickens up. It then becomes Teo being the one who's like kind of moving backwards and trying to become the counter striker here. She's still utilizing the jab and stuff, but for the most part here, she's the one who's backing off. And Zhang here, who is pretty much committed to being a counter striker here, starts to lean in and tries to bait Teo into once again trying to overcommit inner strikes, leading to Zhang going in for a quick combination. But Zhang struggles, so Zhang is the one who's trying to press for the action, but she's struggling poking Teo because Teo here, she's got a greater reach advantage. If you look at like the length of the arms and legs, I think there's like a 3 centimeter advantage for both arm and leg reach for Teo compared to Zhang. So Zhang just overall struggled a lot more. She tries to bait in Teo with the counter punches. Zhang almost got a knockdown by throwing a rare leg kick. She very, very rarely threw leg kicks. She was mostly a headhunter for most part of this fight. Zhang almost got knocked down with a leg kick, but Teo just stumbled a wee bit. The cut on Teo's left eye is starting to get a lot more worse. Zhang starts throwing it, but Teo gets double underhooks and lands a takedown. Good on her for that. Teo tries to get on the back, but Zhang stands up as they clinch with one another on the cage. Teo drops down, gets a takedown in, but Zhang is on top. Teo is holding onto the left arm of Zhang, trying to go in for a Kimura lock, but Zhang escapes and tries some ground and pound. Teo does a good job at pulling her into her guard, preventing her from trying to square up, but in the final 12 to 15 seconds of the second round, Zhang was able to power through and land in some really good ground and pound shots. The two get up as the round ends. Second round ends with me saying that Zhang won the second round. So although Teo did a lot more better than she did in the first round, and when she was able to go get in 2 takedowns, first takedown, she didn't really gain ground advantage. It's like, she got her on her knees, but then Zhang was able to get back up. And in my opinion, if you're to go for a takedown and you're successful with it, if you can't hold down your opponent for a certain amount of time, I can't give you an exact time because it varies depending on your positioning. I can't really give you that. But Zhang was taken down and then stood right back up within the span of like 4 to 5 seconds. Just 4 or 5 seconds. It wasn't really that much. So I'm not going to give credit for TIffany Teo getting that first takedown in, but I definitely give credit for Teo getting the second takedown in, to which she was able to go pull Zhang onto her guard, and she was really doing good. Going for the submission holds and landing some clean strikes from bottom. But Zhang was able to overpower her, and I say here, Zhang landed a lot more better shots and was a lot more dominant in the ground than TIffany Teo was. So although TIffany Teo brought Zhang down, Zhang did a lot more better controlling her opponent in the second round when she was grappling with her. So I say Zhang won the second round. And Zhang is winning in the stand-up exchanges. Teo, so now we're going to the third round here. Zhang is winning in the stand-up exchanges. Teo attempts a clinch, but is pushed off. Teo is no longer poking in the striking exchanges and is now just using her jabs to make way to close in for a clinch. We see this all the time. I give credit where credit is due here, in that I respect Teo here for pushing the action. She made it very obvious. She made it very uncomfortable, but she made it also very obvious that she was leading in for takedown and for clinches. First round, second round was like, alright then, I can strike with you, but I can also grapple. Now it's, okay, I'll try to strike with you so I can find an opportunity to go and grapple with you. Zhang was able to recognize this, and so she herself became a lot less aggressive and started throwing out a lot less like overhand rights, which is something that she always kept doing through first and second round. Teo, surprisingly enough, so, wait, I'm trying to look this out. Teo's longer poking here. Teo, since she's trying to push herself into closing the distance, into getting with Zhang, Teo has to, like, throw something at Zhang in order to put Zhang, like, at ease with her striking. So, Teo gets in a really clean head kick, a nice-looking head kick, but Zhang eats it. She eats this head kick and smiles back at Teo. And then immediately right after that, Teo lands an up kick, an Anderson Silva level up kick. Zhang eats it like it's for breakfast. Now, Teo, she's more confident now. She recognized she was able to land 2 really good kicks. She's not throwing in leg kick, body kick. She's trying to aim for head kicks now. As Zhang goes headhunting. Zhang at this point, after being rocked twice, is like, you know what? Screw this like poking, boxing style. I'm going to let you dictate the fight here. I'm going to go in. So Zhang is now diving in, preventing TIffany Teo from getting a good enough distance to be able to go poke her opponent. Throwing in some these huge overhead rights. The final minute has Teo being very passive, with Zhang landing in some clean strikes, which was very bad for TIffany there. TIffany was doing so well for this fight, but that last minute, man. That last minute. When looking in the totality of that third round, although TIffany Teo landed two really good kicking shots here, Zhang still won the majority of the 50-50 striking exchanges here. She did. And in the moments where TIffany Teo was able to land in those leg kicks, we would see like 3 more moments each from Zhang landing in some strong right overhands. And because of that, I give total accumulations of that fight, especially in the final minute, towards Zhang Jingan. And then I gotta go. I'll continue talking about this fight after the quick commercial break here. Once again, you listen to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast. I am Arnel De Leon. See you right after a short commercial break here.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info. Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. Welcome back to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast. I am excited, not for the election, but I'm excited for the fact that we got some good action coming in from Bellator 1 and the UFC. And if you don't keep up with any of the top champions, for one, especially Angela Lee, who I believe Angela Lee has the potential to maybe possibly go to the. I think she's like 24 years old. She's about 24 years old. She's the current atomweight champion. And although atomweight champions have the tendency of struggling mightily in the UFC, we've seen this happen to Junior Frey just recently. No. Junior Frey was Invicta atomweight champion. But then again, still, atomweights generally have the tendency of struggling, fighting against fighters who are bigger than them. Whatever. But Angela Lee, I believe she's got a lot of potential to go into the UFC and possibly being, a future face for the company. I am that high on her. So, if you're not watching One Championship, I recommend you do. But I'm right now talking about Zhang Jing Nan against TIffany Teo. 2 really stellar fighters here. And so, in the third round here, I said Zhang was able to win because she won the totality of total striking exchanges there. And now we go to the fourth round. Zhang goes for a spinning back kick that hits nothing, like 14 seconds in. It's like these 2 fighters, they meet, they feel each other out, trying to see what the right distance is for them to go strike. And then, for some reason, she tries to go for this spinning back kick that hits nothing. I'm unsure about that. Even the commentary team was like, you saw her going for the spinning reverse back kick there? Yep. Not sure what she was thinking, but yep, she went for it. Strange. TIffany Teo, she hits a nice leg kick to a left jab combination that kind of stuns Zhang. TIffany Teo goes in for a clinch as the 2 grapple with one another onto the cage. Least amount of volume from both fighters as these 2 are trying to poke each other with leg kicks, but Zhang is landing her counter rights with high proficiency. So we went from Zhang being a headhunter in first, second, and third round to being a person who is, okay, so I'm going to go hit you with leg kicks. I know she's going to lean in for a jab. And this is what really stuffed TIffany Teo in this fight here. And that whenever she leaned in for a jab, she's like kind of leaning in her head. It's weird. So she would jab with her left arm, get the full extension, and then she crunches her body kind of downward. And she has her right arm just not really doing anything. So her head is pretty much free. If Zhang could figure this out and spot the right openings here, spot the openings in between her jab and her trying to close herself from the counter hits, Zhang could land some clean shots. And that's what Zhang did. Zhang was able to be... She didn't overcommit to anything. She was laying in these right overhands, super efficient, and it's because of that efficiency that I got to give the round to Zhang in the 4th round. So, yeah, both fighters pretty much fought the exact same way here. Exact same way in the sense that TIffany Teo was going for leg kicks so she can clinch. Zhang was going for leg kicks so she can find an opening from her opponent when she does a counterpunch, so she herself can do a counterpunch and go for an overhand right. So both fighters had this idea of throwing in leg kicks so they can bait each other out, and they can force the other fighter to become overcommitted to either a takedown or to a strike. Zhang just did a lot more better in the strategy, though. And then we go to the 5th round here. I put down here, their last fight was 3 years ago. It ended with Zhang defeating Teo in the 4th round. So the narrative of this fight, it was talked about it by the commentary team through every single round, was if TIffany Teo can make it to the 5th round, that would give her a huge confidence boost, because TIffany Teo, she lost via TKO in the 4th round in their last exchange 3 years ago. And I'm thinking here, okay then, so if Tiffany here, she's going to have a better 5th round. Alright, let's see what happens here. Both fighters are throwing bombs at one another immediately. There was one instance to which Teo landed a combination that ended with a body kick that dazed Zhang, surprisingly enough, though. And I'll tell you right now, Tiffany should have been more committed to the body kicks. That's what I believe. I believe that Tiffany Teo's leg kicks really weren't doing anything other than the kind of like annoy Zhang. And I think that if she was more committed to throwing up body kicks or going back to the body punches that she was doing back in the 1st round, she could have maybe found an opening to which she could have like ducked under. Because there's only one moment in this entire fight to which she went for a combination and ducked under for a takedown. Yes, it didn't work, but then again, like, I wouldn't mind it if she just kept pressing forward on it, though, because obviously she has the skill to go and... Because in the striking exchanges, without a doubt, Zhang would win. It's more 50-50 on the grappling. Yes, Zhang did a better job in the grappling back in the 2nd round. Yeah. But considering that she is a lot more better as a striker than she is a grappler, I would think that Tiffany Teo here, the BJJ expert, would be willing to go take more risks. That's what I believed here. So, Zhang continues to land more overhand rights, but Teo clinches and gets a leg trip in. Teo presses her up to the cage, lands some really good knees, but Zhang used the cage to go get right back up. Zhang attempts an overhand right, but Teo drops down and attempts a takedown, but Zhang stuffs it. Both women are throwing strikes as the bell sounds. 5th round, a round finally goes to Tiffany Teo here. And I liked it. Tiffany Teo did what I believe would have been better for her, and that she'd do a lot of level changes here. Okay, so in this fight here, Zhang, she was able to defend and retain her 1 championship strawweight title. I like to see her against Lee again, but I think in this fight here, how did I put it here? I'm putting that one. Okay, so for Tiffany here, she didn't attempt all that much takedowns. She didn't. Because in the build-up to this, the idea was, if Tiffany could grapple with Zhang, if she could wrestle her, if she could grapple her, if she can do clinch work, then Tiffany Teo is more likely to go win the fight. And in the brief instances to which she was able to get a takedown in, or to clinch, she's doing well for herself. Yeah, there are some moments where it backfired, definitely back in the 2nd round. But 1st, 3rd, 4th round, which to me were the 3 weak rounds for Tiffany Teo here, she either was overconfident in her striking, or she was so focused on trying to bait Zhang into overcommitting in the striking exchanges that she could go in for a takedown. And there were only 2 rounds to which Tiffany Teo was able to successfully do that. 2nd round and 5th round. Those are the only 2 rounds to which she could have potentially won with her grappling. I just like that's how I saw it more than anything else here. Tiffany Teo, she had a really good showcase. It was a really good showing. Although Zhang won the fight via unanimous decision, though, when watching the fights, man, it just... If Tiffany made these small little changes, or she changed up her game plan, maybe she could have won. Just maybe she really could have. I always say this. So, the best grappler who does this type of fighting would have to be like Khabib and Kamaru. I'll say Kamaru Usman, in the fact that when you fight with them, man, they are not gonna, except with the exception being Colby Covington versus Kamaru Usman. But when you fight them, neither of them are gonna overcommit in the striking. They're gonna be like, okay, I am humble enough to recognize that you're gonna beat me. That you're gonna beat me in the striking exchanges. Okay, I don't care how much I've trained in my kickboxing. I don't care how much I've trained in my feinting, or in my jabs, or my counter punches. I know for a fact you are going to beat me in these striking exchanges here. And so, I'm going to go and be perfectly fine with you landing in some clean shots with no fear. I'm going to dive in there and go for some takedowns. I think that is something that TIffany Teo should have done, because in the moments where she was winning, TIffany Teo, when she did those two leg kicks, was when she was very unpredictable. It became sort of predictable, at least from the perspective of Zhang, on what TIffany Teo was doing. I can say this right now. Every single round, TIffany Teo was doing pretty much the exact same thing. Leg kick, bait in, go for a clinch. Clinch doesn't really work there. I don't see an opening for a clinch. Okay then, leg kick, go for a jab. She didn't make Zhang uncomfortable enough with her. Here's the thing. Even Colby Covington does this, actually. Sorry for bringing up Colby Covington here. But Colby Covington, where he brings a barrage of like strikes, although none of these strikes are going to knock anyone out. Just like Tiffany Teo. Tiffany Teo, although she landed some good shots onto Zhang, those head kicks weren't going to knock her out. I bet she believes that if she were to like land a couple more of those, she would have knocked out Zhang. But no. It wasn't possible for Tiffany to go knock out Zhang. And the same thing applies for Colby Covington. Colby Covington cannot knock out anybody. He can't. The only reason why he's striking as often as he does is just to pressure his opponents. That's really about it. Alright? That's really about it. Just, he goes in, bothers the heck out of his opponent, then ducks under, goes for a level change. Usman does this, Covington does this, Khabib does this. And if Tiffany Teo, if she were to fight against Zhang again, which is very likely to happen because of the fact that this fight was very entertaining and there was a lot of back and forth action. If Tiffany Teo were to fight against Zhang again, I say, okay, Tiffany here. Alright? I want you to attempt a takedown every 2 minutes. I say every minute and a half to 2 minutes. Is that asking a lot? Yes, of course. That is definitely asking a lot there. It definitely is. But then again, if you don't try that, and you're having basically a boxing match with a person who is objectively a better boxer than you, and everyone's saying, alright then, she's one of the best strikers of all time, not in just one championship, but in all of mixed martial arts, then don't strike her. Just don't do that. Go for some level changes. Force your style. Force your grind out pace, which Tiffany Teo is really good at. Force that pace onto Zhang the next time they fight. And believe me, I think there's a higher probability of the result of this fight being different. Actually, the current anime champion, Angela Lee, she fought the style that I was talking about. That's what she did. In the 2 times they fought, the first time they fought, Angela Lee, she was overly confident in her striking, and in the brief moments that she was actually grappling with Zhang, she was winning. And then, she sadly got TKO'd, but in the rematch, in the second fight, Angela Lee was like, alright then, I'm gonna go cover up, I'm gonna barrel my way through this, you can watch this, in both fights. Angela Lee, she will just barrel her way through the onslaught of offense from Zhang, just so she can duck under and just pick her up or slam her, or pick her up and just grapple with her, go shooting for a double leg takedown. Angela Lee, she, for as good as a striker as she is, she knows grappling is her main suit. and she won the fight via submission, rear naked choke, because of this commitment from Angela Lee to be like, alright then, I don't care what's going to happen. I am confident enough in myself to know that you're not going to knock me out. I'm also confident in myself to know that I am in no way am capable of knocking you out. You can't knock me out. So I'll just wrestle you. See where it goes. I know I can do better. Alright then. She won the fight via submission victory here. Tiffany, I don't know what's next for Tiffany in her future right now, but hopefully things will go back for her. She'll be able to bounce back from this, because honestly, I like to see more from TIffany Teo coming in down the line for one championship. I really am excited about this. TIffany Teo, there's a story about her. You can find this online where she talks about like her story and her trying to bounce back from this loss here. It's very interesting. I recommend people go look up for it right now. And so coming back right after a short commercial break, I'll be talking about the other fights coming in from one, including Rito Fogad against New Strayprov, NSP, and also Meng Bo versus Priscilla Hurtado. Two very, very different fights that stellar finishes, that were very dominant, and I recommend both of these fights if you have not seen them yet. So once again, you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, coming back right after a short break here, discussing more One Championship. See you soon.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. So I'm discussing One Championship, and the event was called, I double checked it, One Championship Inside the Matrix. Ooh, wow, how super cool. It sounds like a movie. That's how I put it on. We have One Championship, we have UFC Fight Night event, we have Bellator 240 whatever, but here we got One Championship Inside the Matrix. Ooh. So I discussed one of the best fights of the year. To be honest with you, like really, it really was. Zhang Jing Nan versus TIffany Teo. Man, these women's stride bouts, man, are awesome. It's like every time I see a women's stride bout, I'm just like, oh wow, I'm gonna see fireworks here. I don't know what to expect here. I don't know what exactly to expect here, but I know I'm gonna see a fight that's gonna be very exciting. A lot of back and forth action and impressive footwork and technical ability coming in from both fighters. That's what I expect every time I see a women's stride bout. And then we have one fight here coming in. It's Rito Fogad against New Strayprov, color NSP. So Rito versus NSP here. I forgot to mention. So the event was in Singapore, and there was a lot on the line in that fight. In the sense that not only was it a one championship strawweight title fight, Tiffany, she is from Singapore, and there actually was an audience there. There was an actual audience. You could hear them, a small audience, albeit, but it was in an indoor stadium in Singapore. And then as Tiffany was being announced, like, coming from here, TIffany Teo, you could hear the audience be like, whoa, yeah, and every little thing that Tiffany did, whether she landed a head kick, a leg kick, was clinching with them, the crowd and the audience were going, whoa, yeah, that's totally awesome. Which is a complete opposite because in the same day I watched the event, I was also watching Bellator. And I think the first one was Derek Anderson against Nico Modi or something like that. Not really sure about the name here, but it was like, are you ready? Are you ready? Let's get it on. So both fighters, they meet each other in the center of the cage, and then you hear the commentator team be like, yep, this indeed is a quiet arena. Yep, you could hear my voice. You could hear the cornerman voice. Yep, very quiet. Note, it's not always going to be quiet, because when we get fans again, things will be different. But yep, this is quiet. Like, it's super awkward, and this also happens in the UFC. So when I heard the crowd cheering for TIffany, supporting their home nation, their home country girl, alright then, they're like, whoa, yeah, good on you. It brought smiles to me. It really did. But let me talk about Rito Fogat against NSP here. I put down the notes. Wrestling domination. That's what it was. NSP stood no chance. No chance. There was no instance in this fight that looked like NSP had any business there. Alright then, Rito fought NSP like she owed her lunch money. They both square off in the middle of the cage. NSP tries poking Fogat. I don't know if it's Fogat, but Rito Fogat. Rito just eats it. She eats the leg kicks. She eats the jabs. And she, with no fear at all in her eyes, is like, I don't care. Shoots in, double leg takedown. I'm gonna punch you in the body as much as I can. I'm gonna grapple with you. I'm gonna throw you down, laying some heavy knee strikes, throwing in some elbows, ground and pound action. Man, Rito Fogat was scary in this fight, man. She was terrifying. She fought how I believe TIffany Teo should have fought, in the sense she had no fear of the striking. Yes, Zhang is one of the best strikers in the entire world. But if you're a grappler, and your strategy or your goal is to grapple, why are you trying to commit yourself in the striking? That always puzzles the heck out of me. It always does. And so Rito here, she's like, no, I have no confidence in my boxing. Look, even her boxing form looked really off. It looked very tight. She was like punching the air. It was obvious between NSP and Rito here that NSP strikes matter a lot more. But Rito's like, you know what? I don't care that my striking sucks. Double leg takedown, grapple, forearm smashes, bang, bang, bang. And Rito Fogat was able to win the fight, defeating NSP via TKO finish. Dominant, powerful, strong victory there by Rito Fogat. And now we go to the other fight here. Kind of the opposite, but still a little bit the same here. Same difference. So we had Mengbo versus, I might say her name wrong here, Priscilla Hurtado. So Mengbo and Priscilla, for a minute and I say 40 seconds of this fight, it was just like Mengbo and Priscilla, they're poking each other, trying to feel each other out, trying to, understand spacing here, trying to find their openings. And then, 1 minute and 40 seconds in, Priscilla overreaches, she overcommits to her left hand, which leads to Mengbo ducking under, going in for a right hook. Okay, here's how I explain it. Okay, have any of you watched Looney Tunes? Any of you? There has to be like one Looney Tunes where like Bugs Bunny is fighting somebody, and then Bugs Bunny... Oh, no, okay. What's the... Okay, Popeye, Bugs Bunny. One of those old cartoons where they would like load up their glove or load up their fist, and they're gonna like swing their arm like a cartoon character, and then they're gonna punch their opponents. And the cartoon character that they punch like starts spinning. Like they start spinning like a cart. Like there's a game called it's not called One Punch. It's called Punch Out. I think it's called Punch Out. It's a Punch Out game. It's on Nintendo where when you punch somebody, typically when you punch somebody they just fall on their back. Well, in this scenario here, you punch the person so hard that they end up spinning And that's what happened here. Meng Bo, with a one-punch knockout, hit Priscilla Hurtado so hard that Priscilla's corpse pretty much span. It just spinned. And then Meng Bo just got on top of her, being like, what? And then the referee just stopped the fight. It was a cartoony finish. And you normally don't see that stuff ever happen. You normally do. Who punches a person so hard that their entire body, like, there's like, specifically the upper body, lower part of the body is perfectly still. Upper body just spins around. It is wild. It is a wild knockout here. And also, as Meng Bo knocks out Priscilla, Priscilla's head bounces off the cage, splats on the floor. Oh, damn, what a vicious knockout, man. Without that, one of the most vicious knockouts I've seen. Like, Joaquin Buckley's knockout has to be like, oh man, that's a cool knockout. And then Meng Bo's knockout is like, oh dang, dude, he took her head off knockouts. That's what it was. You can find this video on YouTube. Type in Meng Bo versus, and you're gonna see this highlight reel of Meng Bo knocking chicks out, dude. That girl has got firepower. And here's the thing, she's only 24 years old. I think she's also like a veteran also, really enough. I think like Meng Bo is like, I think she's kind of a veteran, but also not at the same time, where she's like a young veteran. Alright, let me figure this out now. What is her overall, oh yeah, so she is 15-5 in her MMA career, but she's only 24 years old. Can you believe that? Insane! Absolute insanity here. And she's been fighting since 2013. And she already has 20 fights under her belts. And she's only 24 years old. Oh my goodness, wow. Just wow. And here's the thing, the only reason why she's not even having, she was supposed to have even more fights, but a lot of the fights ended up being canceled. And considering COVID happened, she had another fight canceled. So really, her record should be even a lot more than this. Meng Bo is a monster. She is a future freak of the division, and I will not be surprised if somebody as young as her, a prospect like her, who is as experienced as her, one day goes in and just murks people left and right, and you see her name like on the front screen as one of the top fighters in the entire world. I will not be surprised if that ever happens. Oh my goodness. Wow. Just wow. And actually, I found myself an interesting article here. So this is coming in by bjpen.com. So I am only now just trying to get into one championship here. But no, Meng Bo is the only woman to ever defeat current women's strawweight champion, UFC strawweight champion, Weili Zhang, and discusses the UFC champion's run. So Weili Zhang, she is 20-1 in her career. It's so weird. So Bo says here, she gives here, we were both at the start of our career, and we were both young. It was the first MMA contest for both of us, and there were only 2 rounds. It was not as professional as people think. It was an amateur promotion, and we were both amateurs. Meng defeated Weili Zhang by decision that night, but other than the thrill of winning her first match, doesn't remember much about tangling with the future UFC champion. It's been 5 or 6 years since she fought Weili Zhang. I can't really remember clearly. We were like kids. I didn't fear anybody at that time. It's not like fighting in a worldwide promotion where you need to do research on your opponent. I just didn't care who she was or to be honest with you, I was not so impressed with her performance. I think too much about her at the time. You can't tell if somebody has a potential for being a champion or not from their debut, but I can say I'm not surprised she became champion. In fact, all of China's top athletes have the potential to become champions. So despite not giving Zhang much thought after their match, Meng started to pay attention to her former rival as she rose steadily up the ranks. I followed some of her fights because we were a tight community, referencing the close-knit nature of the Chinese MMA scene. Though her success, I think one thing we learned is that both hard work and opportunity can build a champion. Sometimes you can't succeed no matter how hard you work with the opportunity, but sitting and waiting for luck also won't work. Weili's a lucky girl, but she works as hard as a world champion. Isn't Weili Zhang like 31 years old? So, like, it's hard for her to be like, oh man, we were just both kids. Like, Meng Bo, she's still a kid. Meng Bo is 24 years old. She's younger than me. What the heck? So, Weili Zhang, she's 31. There was a 7-year age difference between Weili Zhang and Meng Bo. I'm trying to figure out, like, their actual ages in this moment here. So, this was back in 2013. So they fought 7 years ago, which meant that when Meng Bo defeated Weili Zhang was 24 years old, and Bo was only 17. Meng Bo was taking people's names at the age of 17. And then she goes on to a series of, like, knockouts and, like, submission victories. Mostly a lot of knockouts, actually. At the age of just 19 years old. Oh my goodness, wow. How the heck the UFC has not signed this girl? I have no clue. This 24-year-old prospect, I might be overhyping her just a wee bit here, but oh my goodness. Yeah, dude. If you're not sold on Meng Bo yet, I recommend you do. I recommend you follow her career because, man, if this chick goes on to be as good as she continues to be, oh my goodness, she really can be a future face of the company. I really do believe that. You know what's really puzzling me right now? Is the fact that currently in the UFC divisions, with the exception of like Yan Xiaonan, I'm not sure if Yan is Chinese, but it really does feel like right now there does seem to be like a lack of like Asian representation happening in the UFC, because China right now, they are dominating one championship. They are dominating one championship right now. They have multiple contenders, multiple champions, and when you see somebody like Weili Zhang, you think, all right, then let's go get more fighters who come in who are in the same breed of Weili Zhang, who competed and have participated in these Asian events, in these Asian organizations, and let's go and pick out some of the best fighters from there and bring them into the UFC. There doesn't seem much of that there. I see a lot of great fighters in one, and I'm thinking to myself, oh man, I could imagine these fighters competing for the UFC or Bellator and dominate. I genuinely believe that. Now, will that happen sometime in the near future? In the near future, I don't really think so. I think Invicta FC is a great breeding ground right now to go get some fighters, some female fighters coming in. Like right now, I know Kay Hansen is a prospect that they're very high on. They just got Jinio Frey, who although not doing well for herself, she's still a former Invicta FC champion. We have Anthony Shevchenko, who they really want to push right now. But as of right now, I just don't think there's much need for Asian female fighters coming in to the UFC. I'd like to see more of that, but heck, that's just me. So you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast. Coming back right after a short commercial break here. See you soon.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back, and so I'll be discussing Claudia Gadhela versus Yan Xiaonan. It was a very fun matchup. This was the first match for the UFC Fight Night event, which was headlined by Glover Teixeira and Diego Santos. And going into this fight, it was a striker versus grappler here. The preview of this fight was focusing on the fact that although Claudia Gadhela has a good, strong all-around game, if she could focus in onto her grappling, she's going to go tire out Yan Xiaonan, and then she's going to go for a single leg or double leg takedown and grind her out. Yan, she herself likes the grind out fight, but she prefers grinding it out through the stand-up. So we got a striker versus grappler here. Who is going to win? So going into this fight, I believe that it was way too soon for Yan. I thought that Yan needed maybe one more win under her belt before she tries to compete somebody as high ranked as Claudia Gadhela. I think Yan was coming into this fight as the number 9th ranked fighter. Claudia Gadhela was ranked number 6th. But it's weird that the women's strawweight division, it's highly competitive within the top 10, and then almost any of those women can't compete among the top 5. But for me, I thought it was too soon for Yan to go compete with somebody like Claudia Gadhela. But I was proven wrong here. I'm going to go down by my notes here. Yan is connecting a lot more in the jabs, but Claudia does daze Yan with the left hand. Then Claudia shoots in and successfully gets a takedown just 40 seconds into the first round. Yan getting some elbows in from bottom, then they slowly get up to the cage. Yan is trying to get out, but Claudia is pressing her forward onto the cage. Yan is throwing some defensive strikes, while Claudia is primarily just putting on the pressure and putting her weight down onto her. Not really that much action coming in from top position by Claudia. More like Claudia, she's grappling with Yan, and she's making sure that Yan is stay put on the ground, but she's not really working her offensive-wise. I was thinking here, okay, so Cadella here, she prefers the grind-out game here. So she's going to grapple with Yan, and hopefully, this is what I thought that she was thinking, and that her grappling would tire out Yan. And then going to the second or third round, it would be more of a sense of Claudia shooting in for double leg takedowns, and then doing the ground and pound here. I didn't expect Claudia Gadhela. I don't think Claudia Gadhela came into this fight with a strategy of like, okay, I'm going to go and stop her in the first round, or I'm going to go and pull off as much damage as I can in the first round. I didn't think that was a strategy. So Claudia here, she's grappling with Yan. But Yan here, she's throwing out these vicious elbow strikes from the bottom. She's always working Claudia. I would say here, out of the two women, who was getting hurt more during these grappling exchanges here? I say Claudia Gadhela was easily getting hurt more here. After the end of the first round, in the bottom left hand of the screen, you see people like on Twitter reacting to the fights. And all of them are saying, wait a minute, is Yan winning the fight from bottom position? And I'll say yes. Yan was winning the fight from bottom position. She accumulated more strikes from both standing and on bottom. The only moment where it looked like Claudia Gadhela was winning in terms of like the striking battle, whether it be the ground pound or in the stand-up, was the one instance to which Claudia dazed her. But for that one instance Claudia dazed Yan, Yan was able to pull off a good combination or was able to lay down some good strikes from bottom. I put down here, referee separates them because Claudia Gadhela, she's pressing on Yan onto the cage, doing some clinch work, but Claudia really isn't going for anything here. She really isn't. She's like pressing her body forward onto Yan to make Yan uncomfortable, but Yan is like fighting through, hitting in some shots. Even though she's being clinched, she's laying in some vicious knees from. Even though her back is onto the cage, she still has room enough to go pull off like body knees and like kicks and like elbows and farm smashes. A referee breaks them up because Claudia really isn't doing all that much. Yan tries to poke in with some leg kicks. Claudia grabs the leg and gets another takedown, so she gets 2 takedowns in the first round. Yan continues to land in some elbows from the ground and making it really uncomfortable for Claudia to square up for ground and pound. There was an instance where Claudia Gadhela was pretty much stuck at half guard, and she just couldn't move to any other position. She couldn't move to side position. She couldn't move back to. She couldn't move to mount. She even struggled going to even full guard position because Yan Xiaonan was just striking her so viciously that even if Claudia Gadhela were to a little bit try to square up from top position, she would be enduring a lot of damage. It was very similar to when GSP fought against Michael Bisping. That although GSP got the takedown in onto Michael Bisping was the one who was dealing with the damage. And in that instance, I'd be like, alright, so you got the takedown. Congratulations. Now, are you winning the grappling when you're in the ground? And the answer here is no. Claudia was not winning on the ground game, despite the fact that she was the one who initiated the ground game in the first place. So, Claudia grabs the leg. Yan goes in for some vicious elbows. Claudia lands 2 good shots from top. First round goes to Yan. She did overall a lot more work from both ground and on top, and on standing. And although she did get taken down twice, personally for me, I do not reward fighters for just getting a takedown in the first place. Merab Dvalishvili does this, and I think it's not going to end up well for him in the long term. In the sense that we have fighters like Merab Dvalishvili, or even Claudia Gadhela here, who think all because they go for the takedown and are successful at it, that means they won the round. No, that's not really the case here. You gotta go for the takedown. Okay then, good. You're in the good graces of the judges. You're in the good graces of the audience member. Alright then. Now, can you control your opponents? And the answer is no. You can't. I think I read somewhere online where it's like, hey, how would Khabib do well in the Olympics? And someone said that, well, Khabib, he's good at going for takedowns, yes, but his inability to control his opponent through not utilizing Sambo and other techniques and just going for pure wrestling is kind of lacking here. And that's what I see in Claudia Gadhela, in the sense that, yeah, she's going for the takedowns. Yes, she is scoring some points in terms of, just getting in the first place, but she's not really controlling her opponents. And then we go to the second round here. Yan continues to pick her apart with her stand-up game. Claudia can't really find an opening to grapple and has a much lower volume of strikes, as in Yan is pulling off the 3-punch combinations. Yan being the much more longer fighter in the legs and arms, she is just picking her apart with leg kicks and the long jabs, pulling up 3 jabs in a row and preventing. She's also extending her left arm out, so she's making it uncomfortable for Claudia to go dive in there for a takedown, because she knows that if she were to go in for a takedown, she could hit a vicious uppercut or an elbow on the route of her trying to go for a takedown. Yan is picking her apart with the strikes. So the third round just goes to Yan here. So while Claudia Gadhela, she wasn't able to go get the 2 takedowns that might have stolen her the round for the first round, Jon Anik said that in the end of the second round, Jon Anik was saying, you know what, I give the first round to Claudia Gadhela, second round goes to Yan. And when I see it, I'm like, okay, no way. First round goes to Yan, second round goes to Yan also. Claudia Gadhela should not be rewarded a round because of 2 takedowns that really didn't involve her having that much control of her opponents. I don't really think so. I'll put down here. Yan continues to pick her apart yet again. Claudia can't find an opening to grapple. Third round goes to Yan yet again. So third round and second round are pretty much super similar in the sense that Yan poking her opponent over and over again. Claudia Gadhela, she blew her load in the first round, which is strange because Claudia Gadhela herself really didn't do much in this fight. And Anik and Dominic Cruz were questioning this. They're like, wait a minute here, what's Claudia Gadhela doing here? In the first round she was hyperactive, and then the second and third round here she's just being very passive and lackadaisical with her offense. And Dominic Cruz said it best, that he said, it looked like Yan Xiaonan, she really wants to go and stop her opponents and make her way up in the rankings. Claudia Gadhela seems like she's the type of person who is very comfortable in her position right now in the UFC. And I gotta agree with her. I gotta agree with Dominic Cruz here. Like some fighters, when I think about fighters who are trying to make a name for themselves in amongst the rankings, whether it be at flyweight and strawweight, especially those 2 divisions, I think of like Rana Marcos, Amanda Rivas, Mackenzie Dern, Yan Xiaonan, Angela Hill. Even Michelle Watterson, strangely enough, though, even though she's a proper journeyman fighter. But we have these fighters here who are putting the extra effort into trying to go climb up the rankings here. Meanwhile, we have fighters like Carlos Barza and Claudia Gadhela, 2 fighters who were calling each other out. I think before this fight, they were ranked number 6 and number 7. And both these women, despite being stuck from rank 6 to 10 for the longest time, are just not given any opportunities to go fight against someone who is part of the top 5, which is weird because both Nina Ansaroff and Tatiana Suarez are inactive. So why aren't Carlos Barza and Claudia Gadhela moving up the rankings? And you know what? The truth here is because their recent performances aren't impressive enough to warrant them to go up high in the rankings here. Because from this performance here, Yan proved that here's what I believe. I think Yan Xiaonan is definitely good enough. I think she's fighting one weight class bigger than she really should be. I think she should compete at flyweight. I think Yan is a natural flyweight, but she's competing at strawweight for some reason. I think Yan is a fighter who is definitely good enough to fight against something like Nina Ansaroff, Tatiana Suarez. I don't think she's in the same level as a Jessica Andrade, Rose Namajunas, Ryan Chaychik, but Yan is she's right there. She's right there, and I think she's definitely good enough of a fighter to be able to compete amongst the top 5 here. And with Yan Xiaonan here, she wins by unanimous decision. Because of this, she'll now be competing amongst the top 5 of the strawweight division. So good on there for Yan. Claudia Gadhela, I think at this point in her and Carlos Barza's career, they're proper journeymen. They're proper journeyman gatekeepers right now in the UFC's strawweight division. I think Carlos Barza. So, side enough, Carlos Barza, when she fought against, I think it was Amanda Ribas. I think Carlos Barza, she had a recent fight against Amanda Ribas, I think. And in that fight, Carlos Barza made very huge errors in that fight that put her in a position where it looked like she should have lost the fight because she wanted to go close it off. And you know what? Yeah, Carla Esparza, she fought sloppy in her last fight in order to possibly get a more exciting fight going in, so the UFC best can support her. But then Carla Esparza got rebooked again for another prospect who was outside the top 10. And Claudia Gadhela, she needed this fight. Cadella desperately needed this fight to go defeat Yan. And I think if Gadhela were to defeat Yan in this fight, then she might be maybe 1, maybe 2 fights away from potentially fighting against somebody who was amongst the top 4 of the women's strawweight division. That's what I believed. But because of the slots here, we might see Claudia Gadhela fill that same role as Carla Esparza and just constantly fight people outside the top 10. Now, it sucks. I get it. Claudia Gadhela and Esparza are currently in a good run right now. But their styles are A, it's kind of boring. B, it's hard to market both of those fighters. And C, both of them are proper veterans of the sport here, and with the way and considering how active they are currently right now in their respective fights, it's understandable to see that, okay, these two women, they're just the gatekeepers right now. Their goal is to go put over the young women who are trying to make up their way in the rankings, and there's a lot of them. The strawweight division and the flyweight division are, in my opinion, the two deepest divisions of the best fighters who are outside the top 10. That's what I believe. And here's the thing. The top 5 right now in the rankings for the strawweight division is pretty much stacked. It is. We got Rose Namajunas, Weili Zhang, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Jessica Andrade, who is currently the number one contender for the flyweight division, and the fact that Jessica Andrade had a dominant victory over Caitlin Chikagian shows how awesome of a fighter Jessica Andrade is. I don't think Yan Xiaonan is good enough to fight against someone like Jessica Andrade. I don't think so. But you know what? Only time can tell. The trajectory right now for Yan Xiaonan is very positive, and I can see only good things coming in from her. What's very funny about this, though, is that me right now is trying to get to one championship here. And currently in one championships, the Chinese fighters are the ones who are dominating everything right now. And I'm looking at the headlines here, and there's already a lot of talks already about, oh man, it would be kind of a big super fight here if we had Yan Xiaonan against Weili Zhang. Like, I'm looking right now, I see SB Nation, MMA Junkie, BJPen.com, and all the headlines and all like the subtitles here are like, oh man, it would be a huge moment in MMA if we had two Chinese fighters main event a show. And I'm like, you know what? That would be awesome. That'd be great. Currently the anime champion, the women's anime champion for one championship, Angela Lee, she said herself that she really wants, because Angela Lee, she herself wants to be in the UFC. She does. She has aspirations of competing for the UFC at one point in her career, at some point in her career. But she goes on to say that, you know what? I would like it if there were a lot more Chinese fighters or a lot more Asian fighters, female fighters coming into the UFC right now, because there are a lot of really darn good prospects who are a lot of darn good fighters in one championship that people need to pay attention to right now. Although the atomweight division right now is really darn good for one championship, I would like it to be an atomweight division for the UFC. If they were to have that and have that replace the women's featherweight division, I think we would have a lot more deeper pool of great fighters, of great female fighters in the UFC. And so that brings us to a close for today's podcast. You have been a great audience. There's a whole lot of MMA everywhere, from one championship to Bellator to UFC to Invicta, and I'm really happy about it. So that brings us to a close. All I gotta say is thank you. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask you, please remember to subscribe to this show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you could please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Women's Mixed Martial Arts Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.